once a year.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do it.
Good evening and welcome to Ysleta Independent School District's meeting of the Board of Trustees. A meeting of the Board of Trustees is a meeting of the board that the public is allowed to attend. As provided, Ysleta ISD policy BED, we invite members of the public to make comments during the citizens' input portion at the start of the meeting according to the instructions provided with the electronic posting notice of our meeting. Legally, the board may listen but may not enter into discussion on matters in citizens' input. We remind everyone that this is a board meeting often attended by students and ask that we conduct ourselves in a manner that best represents the values and traditions of the Ysleta Independent School District. This meeting of the Board of Trustees is called to order at 6:04 p.m. We have a quorum with Mr. Shane Haggerty, Mr. Chris Hernandez, Mr. Charlie Bustillos, Mr. Mike Dwyer, Ms. Catherine Lucero, Ms. Connie Woodruff will be here. She's running a little bit late, and myself, Cruz Ochoa. It is my honor to introduce the Hanks Junior ROTC this evening. It has become a tradition in our nation at each of our board meetings by presenting the colors, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and then posting the colors. The colors tonight are being presented by the Junior ROTC Color Guard from J.M. Hanks High School. The Color Guard commander is Cadet Command Sergeant Major Thayton Butler. The other Color Guard members are Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Elisario Rees, Cadet Captain Marcos McConnell, and Cadet First Sergeant William Covey. The pledge leader is Cadet First Sergeant Evelyn Duran. Will you please stand for the presentation of colors, the reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge of Allegiance, and a moment of silence. Please remain standing until the cadets have departed. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now, please join me in the pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lucero, do we have citizens' input this evening?
Yes, President, we do. Ms. Ana Quiñones regarding communications.
Can you hear me okay? Good afternoon. My name is Ana Quiñones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a master's in public health and working on my doctorate degree. But most importantly, I have a first grader at YISD. This morning, after a bit of a rushed and stressful start, I started to drop my son off at school. He was already anxious and crying a little bit because our routine got thrown off today and he gets a little bit anxious about that. So he was crying, going up to his line at school, and he was embraced by another kiddo who had his arms wide open for him, and it was just a really sweet and innocent moment. And I felt a sense of relief, a real sense of community this morning in dropping off my kiddo with his teacher and his classmates. But later, I received a phone call from the district about a threat that had been made to the school. And they said it wasn't credible, but that call made me want to run out of my office and have my kiddo in my arms again. And I'm sure that if you're a parent, you can relate to that. So I had a really sweet and heartfelt moment with my kid this morning while dropping him off, and if the circumstances had aligned, what if that had been the last time that I saw him? And it wasn't until after that call that I realized that some parents had already kept their kids home because they knew more about this threat. So why didn't we all know? I went on the district website today and there were no news or links to safety plans, so it made me a bit upset to see the attendance meter link front and center on the webpage. I'm asking for increased transparency when dealing with threats. I don't want another PR phone call saying that safety is our #1 priority. I just want information in real time as appropriate. So that means, what does increased security mean? Is it an extra security guard? Is there a police car parked outside of the school? And I understand that we don't want to incite panic or make people worry when they really shouldn't, but it is a scary moment. And I'm here to advocate for all of us because all of our children are our children. We need to understand that it's not always a kid trying to get out of school. Sometimes it could be the real thing, and this is real personal for our community. I don't feel like I'm overreacting today. As I was driving around, I saw a sticker that said El Paso Strong. And it was a real reminder that a mass casualty event has happened here, and that our children and community members suffered a lot from that. I have faith that this is the job that you're here to do, but we need more transparency. We need clear evidence-based information that doesn't incite panic, whether that's posting safety plans or creating a tip line or inviting people to more forums. I know that we can figure it out together. I'm relatively new to the district as a parent, but I was not very impressed by the response today, and so I'm here asking for more transparency as a stakeholder in the community. And I appreciate your time, and I will actually be heading out because I have to get back to my kiddos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any more speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll begin our board workshop. Dr. De La Torre, do we have any presentations this evening?
Yes, President Ochoa, members of the board. This evening we have a report from Ms. Amy Sanchez. It is her quarterly update.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. De La Torre, Board of Trustees. I will be presenting our quarterly internal audit briefing. Just a quick overview of the projects completed and are in progress since May. We have completed 6 campus audits. We've got 6 currently underway and 3 non-campus audits that we've begun. Are you seeing the slides? I'm not seeing the...
No.
Just to make sure you're following too. The next slide is our audit plan, and it gives you an overview of where we are. Yes, I'm just not seeing them on the screen. Here we go. Not that that's very easy to see anyway. On your left are all the campus audits that we've done or have in progress or pending. And just one thing to note, once we've completed these, and we do anticipate completing, maybe having 1 or 2 left by the end of the year, we'll have reviewed all campuses in the last 2 years. And we'll provide an overview, a status of all those. And additionally, considering the district's move to more cashless transactions and campuses embracing that, we may be able to reduce fundraiser and cash handling work next year, and that'll free up time to do more non-campus reviews. And again, we still are keeping up with our follow-ups. Here is the list that we've completed since May. Substantially, a majority of the campuses that we are revisiting have fully implemented their corrective action plans, so that's good. And those that are still partially implemented, we will review again soon. And just a reminder about our fraud, abuse, and waste hotline. We did get 2 reports since May, and both we're currently reviewing. Just a quick overview of our hours. We're about halfway, a little over, through the year. This is our hours through the end of July. And I will take questions on any of the reports that have been issued.
One of your reports that show high risk for some items there. Could you go over that? I think that's included here in your campus audit of North Loop Elementary.
Yes. In our last, in the spring, we issued a North Loop audit. And recently, we also issued an audit related to that, which was kind of an offshoot. And that was issued to the finance department. So as was requested by the board last year, if we do have any audits that include high risk observations, we will email those to the board right away. In your packet, there's the report for the recommendations for finance is included with a yellow tab. And if you'll see there on page 11, the very last page, that is our priority level. So we have four risk levels. The top in red is priority. Then we have orange, high, medium, and low. A majority of our audits will be medium and low risk, and occasionally we do have high risk, like the ones that you mentioned. Our most recent was regarding bank reconciliations. So we identified those as high risk because bank reconciliations are an important internal control. We reported those right away to the finance division, who promptly addressed them.
On this reconciliation, I see all these numbers and dates are in red. What does that mean?
So within the report, I gave an example of the reconciliations performed and the errors that we identified. So all of these, there was an error in how the bank reconciliations were conducted, the process. And these are the specific errors that we noted in red.
So like in red, it says $1,711.25, and then you circled $1,431.50. So can you explain how that
Is
got
that on
resolved?
page 5?
That's on page 5, yes.
Okay, yes. So for this particular, for that particular error, the amount should have been $1,711 rather than what was included in black was $1,431. So at the time, bank reconciliations were, so if you compare it to, like, you're reconciling your personal checking account and you keep track of when checks are clearing or when deposits are clearing, if a check, sometimes it takes somebody forever to cash a check that you've written to them. So 1 month, it'll be included in the next month because they haven't cashed the check. And if they still haven't cashed the check the next month, it would be another reconciling item in the next month. So what was occurring at the time was they weren't, even if say for example, the check hadn't cleared, it wasn't being included. So there were errors in the process.
Okay, so this was just errors in bookkeeping.
Yes,
I mean, I'm recording.
in the bank reconciliation.
Okay, what about the bottom one that says these are checks that were deposited, recorded, and cleared the bank, so they are not reconciling items?
Yes, in the bank reconciliations, there were errors in what they considered reconciling items. So they weren't truly reconciling items. Essentially, the bank reconciliations for that account weren't being completed accurately.
So what has been done to mitigate this risk?
We haven't completed our follow-up to verify what changes have been made, but in discussions with finance, they promptly addressed it and recognized the errors and have been making corrections.
And in doing so, this type of work, or or lack of work, has the other schools been informed of this particular problem so they don't duplicate that?
So for the bank reconciliations, that will not, this isn't done by the individual campuses. It's done centrally in finance, but the other observation that we made regarding the availability of reports, that has been communicated to the campuses, and they are now aware of reports that they can continually access to monitor if there's any errors in deposits.
So it's coordination between the district and all these schools?
Yes, for that, yes.
And these reports are made, I guess, so should be made on time and accurate so the district can go through this, reconcile go through reconciliation?
So the reconciliations would be done by the Finance Division, and the reviewing of reports would be done by campuses, and it's real-time, so they can access it at any time, and it's updated.
Well, thank you for that, because I didn't know how it worked between in doing this, because I never, this is way beyond my level. But I just want to understand the mechanics or the mechanism that provides this kind of information for us. Well, thank you. I know there's one more in there, but I won't. I mean, it's all about the same. So, okay. Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Very precise and clear reports, easy to understand, and I appreciate the work that y'all put in the coordination with the schools and administration as well. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a great team that supports me.
Yeah, I think you're helping us understand what it is that your department does and how it's done. And then plus also the others, I'm learning how everything works together to keep us good.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
President Ochoa, members of the board, the next presentation is surrounding the district's tax rate. And presenting this evening will be our Chief Finance and Operations Officer, Mrs. Lindley Lieber.
Good evening, President Ochoa, members of the board, and Dr. De La Torre. For the public hearing this evening, I do have our traditional tax rate presentation, which you're familiar with. However, on this first slide, we have some information that you've never seen before, so I want to take a moment and walk you through the information that's displayed here. You can see that in 2020, moving to 2024, the state has increased its homestead exemption from $25,000 per home to $100,000 per home. In addition to this statewide homestead exemption for school districts, the local homestead exemption offered by Ysleta ISD has remained at 20%. We also call this the LOHI, so if I slip in a moment and abbreviate it, you'll know what I'm talking about. When we then look at the total number of accounts which comprise our tax base, you can see that in 2020, we had 67,183 accounts on our tax base which remitted tax payments to the district. In 2024, that's grown slightly, and we have 68,424 accounts on our tax roll. When we look then, and I'm just going to focus now on 2024, 38,449 accounts received the homestead exemption. And keep in mind, if you get one, you get the other. So if you're eligible for the state homestead exemption, you also are eligible for the LOHI for the district. That means about 56% of our homes are eligible for the homestead exemption. If we take those 38,449 homes or accounts within our district that receive the homestead exemption, 21,294 of them actually pay tax in some amount to the district. Roughly 45%, or 17,155 accounts, do not pay any tax as a result of the homestead exemption or the LOHI or the combination thereof or the combination of many other exemptions. So you know if you're age 65 or older, you have an exemption. If you are partially, wholly disabled, you may have an exemption. If you're a veteran, you may have an exemption. There are disability levels of exemptions from 25 to 50 to 75. But in terms of accounts that don't pay tax as a result of the homestead exemption, nearly 45% of the accounts within our tax base pay no taxes to the district as a result of the homestead exemptions. So important information for you to have this evening. This next slide is something you've seen year after year, and I'm going to look at the three main school districts in the county or city of El Paso. I'm going to hold the home value constant for ease of comparison, meaning that every home is going to be valued at the same across all three districts at $190,000. If we look immediately, homeowners in our district receive the LOHI, or the 20% local optional homestead exemption. So on a $190,000 home, they're able to subtract immediately $38,000 from that value. Their adjusted home value, if they're in Ysleta, is $152,000 compared to the same $190 in the other two large districts. Then the standard state exemption of $100,000 is applied, and you can see that brings an Ysleta taxable home value down to $52,000 as compared to $90,000 in the other two districts. If we apply the tax rate that is being proposed for each of those districts, including Ysleta tonight, you can see that the tax bill for an Ysleta homeowner is $640 on a $190,000 home, compared to $953 in Socorro or $973 in El Paso ISD. So roughly speaking, homeowners in those two districts will pay an average of $300 more on a home valued at $190,000 than they will if they reside in Ysleta.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying the Ysleta homestead exemption. I thought, just from the past, that you had to apply for that
You
also.
always have to apply for a homestead exemption. So you have to fill out the form and say, this is my homestead, you can only have one homestead, but if you qualify for the homestead exemption in the district, you should be getting the other one. They both should be applicable to a homestead in our district. There is paperwork to accompany it, but you are
Okay.
entitled to it. Whether you file the paperwork or
Right,
not, I can't guarantee.
Right, okay,
but you are
that's what I
entitled.
was asking.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
do have to file the paperwork
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that.
I'm
Okay.
sorry if I was confusing. Okay, so moving to the next slide, I have now incorporated the city of El Paso, and now I'm using actual home values. So across the city or county of El Paso, median home values vary from district and city across the area, right? So in Ysleta, the average home value is $187,407. In the city of El Paso, it's $235,000. In Socorro, $238,000. In YISD, $250,000 is the median home value. Immediately, we're the only one that offers the LOHI, so 20% is removed from the taxable value or the appraised value of a home in Ysleta. That brings our adjusted value down to $149 compared to $235, $238, $250 in the other entities. Then we apply the standard exemption. I want to point this out to you because it's important. The state sets the homestead exemption for school districts, and that's why you see the $100,000 for each of those entities. The city only grants a $5,000 homestead exemption. Big difference there, and so it brings now our taxable value down to $49,000, almost $50. The city's is $230,000. Socorro's is $138,819, and EPISD's is $150,884. Again, applying the tax rate that's been proposed for each of those entities, you can see that an Ysleta taxpayer will pay $615 on an average valued home, compared to $1,752 in the city of El Paso, $1,470 in Socorro, and $1,631 in EPISD. That's a difference, $1,137 more on a home that goes to the city. And if you're in Socorro, you would pay $855 more than you would in Ysleta, and $1,000 more if you're in El Paso ISD compared to Ysleta ISD. And then I provided adjusted property tax values because it's interesting. So our tax base is $7.8 billion. The city's tax base is $52.3 billion. Big difference there, exponentially increased. The Socorro tax base is $15.3 billion, and EPISD's is $18.8. So we have the lowest tax base of all those entities. And then again, I have provided, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, the no new revenue tax rate for each of those entities. You've already heard the city of El Paso has passed a no new revenue tax rate for their second year in a row. But they are still generating the same amount of revenue that they did last year, and their property values are growing, and they have a much broader tax base than we do. Socorro and EPISD are both proposing rates. Socorro's is less than their no new revenue, and I'm not really going to comment on it because I'm not sure how they got there, but EPISD is proposing a rate slightly higher than their no new revenue rate as well. And I can show you more of that as we go. So this is our tax rate as proposed. This is only looking at Ysleta ISD. If you look at 2022, you can see that we have a maintenance and operations rate that we apply every year. We have an interest and sinking fund rate, or INS rate, and that is, those two components make up the total tax rate. In 2022, our total tax rate was 1.4589. We dropped it by almost 18 cents the next year. That's part of the state's compression. It came down to 1.2813. And then in 2024, we're dropping it another nearly 5 cents to 1.2315. It's interesting to note that even though we're reducing tax rate, and even though we've reduced our INS rate, we are still paying down our bond principal and interest. So you can see that in 2022, our bond and interest payment was $48.6 million. It's $49.9 million this year, but it was $50.6 last year. Our total indebtedness has come down from $873 million in 2022 to $845 million in 2024, a reduction of almost $27 million over those 2 years, while still reducing the rate. Okay, so these are the various no new revenue rates proposed across the city compared to the rate that we're introducing ourselves this evening for adoption, or that these other entities have either adopted or introduced. You can see that Ysleta in the far right proposes 1.2315, which is almost 4 cents more than the no new revenue rate. The city of El Paso adopted the NNR. Socorro is proposing a rate of nearly $1.06, but their no new revenue is $1.14. YISD is proposing a rate of 1.0807 compared to a no new revenue rate of 1.0323, so roughly 5 cents more than their no new revenue rate as well. The no new revenue rate was a term introduced a couple of legislative sessions ago. It used to be called the effective rate. What it really means is, if this property was valued this much last year, and I applied this tax rate, how much revenue did I get last year? And if those property values increase this year, but I don't want to get any more revenue than I got last year, what do I have to reduce the rate to get the same amount of revenue as I did in the prior year? So that's all. It's no new revenue, effective tax rate, they all mean the same thing. And with that, I can take questions.
Just to clarify, those exemptions only apply to school taxes.
The $100,000 only applies to school districts.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I think everybody was under the misconception that it went across the board for
No.
the city, the county, and everybody else.
No,
Said
sir.
So they pay the full, the tax on their full amount that their house was appraised for. So we have $100,000 that plus the 20%. The 20,000. So in effect, that the taxpayer in Ysleta is paying less for that same home had they been in an EPISD or the other districts in the county. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think you explained it very well. The no tax revenue, I was kind of iffy on that, but when you explained it right now, yeah, it makes sense.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Leeper?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for that presentation and all the work you and your staff do. For those residents in YISD that are paying taxes, they will see an increase in the dollar amount that they'll be paying compared to last year, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So if we go to this slide and you look at 2023 tax rate information and you look at Ysleta ISD's tax bill of $558, that's what they would have paid last year. This year, they would pay $615 if their home is the average valued home. So for the year to Ysleta, they will pay about $57 more, not because we raised our tax rate, but because appraised values have come up.
But we are raising our tax rate.
Yeah, I'm lowering the tax rate.
Oh, I
but I'm
understand.
raising
Okay,
it.
excuse me. You're right. The dollar amount,
Yes.
which is probably most important to taxpayers, is being increased because of the rate that we're proposing,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
which is 1.23.
1.5, yes, sir.
Had we have a 1.19, we would be at a no new revenue.
That would be the no new revenue rate. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your clarification.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Lieber, thank you for the presentation and all the work that you and your team do. I think it's important to note that school districts haven't been funded for a couple of years now. We're at no new revenue as far as the state. And so considering all that and being able to meet the needs of paying back our bond, all the responsible things that we're doing here at the district to make sure that we are using taxpayer funds to the best of our ability to be able to fund the needs of the classroom. the needs of maintenance, all of the needs that we have as a district, our student safety. I think this is, thank you for the transparency. This is a very transparent presentation and very open and honest. And so I think we can continue doing what we're doing with all the effort that we're all putting in together. And I hope Governor Abbott watches this and can say how much we need funding for school districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay,
Thank you,
well,
sir.
thank you, Ms. Leeper. All right, per TEC 44.004 and Board Policies E legal, the Board of Trustees must hold a public hearing to discuss and set the district's tax rate on an annual basis. The notice of the public hearing to discuss the 2024-2025 tax rate was previously published in the El Paso Times. The Board of Trustees appreciates your attendance and welcomes you to your input during the public hearing. Please observe the following rules. Individuals wishing to speak are limited to 3 minutes. Any questions? If not, after the presentation, we'll on the district's tax rate. Secretary Lucero, is there anyone who's signed up to speak on the tax rate?
No, Mr. President, there's no one signed up.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lucero. All right, I want to thank you. At this time, we will now close the public hearing. We will now go to the agenda review. Discuss agenda items as listed in the posted notice of the regular meeting of the Ysleta ISD Board of Trustees for September 10th, 2024, and related recommended motions with the superintendent and executive cabinet, and receive responses to questions and or requests. For additional information through the superintendent in preparation for deliberation and action on said items at the September 10th, 2024 regular Board of Trustees meeting. Please stop me if you have any questions or wish to pull an item for separate consideration. We'll now proceed with the consent items. Consider the approval of the minutes for the Board of Trustees workshop and regular board meeting, August 21st, 2024, 6 p.m. Number 2 is accept monthly financial statements and bond project report for July 2024. Number 3, approve budget amendments in accordance with policies EE local. We'll now proceed to the action items. Number 1, approve order setting tax rate for fiscal year 2024-25. Number 2, approve a board resolution to designate YISD agent in all property tax matters. Number 3 is nomination for El Paso Central Appraisal District CAD Board of Directors for the 2025-2027 3-year term. At this time, we have Mr. Rick A. Medina, the Director of Administrative Services of the Central Appraisal District, who will now speak to the new laws, policy, and procedures for this nomination.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. As you know or may not know, in 2023, the legislature changed the way we select our Board of Directors and the makeup of our Board of Directors through House Bill or through Senate Bill 2, which also increased the $100,000 to $100,000 homestead exemption. The county tax assessor collector will automatically be a member. They'll serve as an ex officio member, voting member. Then we're going to have 5 members selected by the voting entities, which are cities, municipalities, school districts, and the community college. Those will be those entities that can vote and determine who they're going to appoint to the board. That process, first you have to nominate someone and deliver it to the appraisal district by October 15th, before October 15th. If you have more than 5% entitlement in your votes, you have to do it by resolution. That's in the code. So once we get your nomination and we get all the nominations of all the other entities, we will go ahead and provide a ballot, which we will return to the entities before October 30th. Then the entities have until December 15th, before December 15th, everything's before December 15th, to deliver us their votes. Now, once we deliver you the ballot, you have to do it on your first or second meeting. That's also in the code. So if you miss those deadlines, you've lost your opportunity. So you got to make sure you meet all the deadlines. Okay, once we have all the votes, we will tabulate them, and before December 30th, we will go ahead and tell the entities who's won. Now, we're currently in phase 1 of the process because the code intends for the board members to serve 4-year staggered terms. The appointed members, such as what you're about to do, they will serve 4-year staggered terms in even-numbered years. Now, there's also the elected. There's going to be 3 elected members through a general election. Now, the general election just took place, and they've already taken office on July 1st. They're going to serve 2.5-year terms. We're in a transition phase. We're trying to get to those 4-year terms. They will also be serving eventually 4-year terms staggered in odd number years. So that's the process, that's the plan, and right now we're in phase 1. 2 members will serve 1-year terms, 3 members will serve 3-year terms. We already have 1 nomination for a 1-year term, all the others have been 3-year terms. If we don't get enough nominations for the 1-year term, it will probably have to be determined by some kind of either lots or something at the first board meeting. It doesn't really address it in the code, so we'll have to do it by that method. So do you have any questions? And this is just phase 1.
Okay. You said that we nominate our representative to the CAD, but he's really just being placed in a ballot? And then the
Yes.
other entities, so he's placed with the other nominees in a ballot, and then all these entities are going to vote for their selection?
They can vote on everybody.
Well, yeah. So let's say everybody voted for their own. How does that work?
Well, you each have your voting entitlement, your number of votes. They're not equal.
Oh, okay, okay.
Ysleta has 400 and, let me put my glasses.
400 and something votes?
453 votes. Compare that to the city of El Paso has 1,941 votes, and it's based on your tax levy.
So who votes? Or is that just the weight?
So when you have to do a resolution saying who you're voting for.
Okay.
And you delivered that to us before December 15th. But what's more important, you have to do it on your first or second meeting after you receive the ballot.
So that counts for 453 votes?
Yes,
A
and you
resolution?
can put them on 1 person, 2 people, 3, you can divide it up however you choose.
Mr. Medina, how many people are on this board?
9.
9. And are we going to be, that's how many will be elected now or in the near future that we'll vote on, or there's some that are going to carry over?
Okay, there will be some that serve 3-year terms, okay, that you'll appoint. And right now, yours is being nominated, it sounds like, for a 3-year term.
Okay.
So they'll start on January 1, 2025, and serve all of 25, 26, and 27.
So all board members have the same stature, the same weight
Yes.
in their vote?
Yes. Of course, those entities that have less than 5% of votes don't have to do it by resolutions. But you have more than 5%, so you have to do it by resolution.
It's very confusing.
It is. I have to
Very
read it every
confusing.
day to refresh my memory.
Okay, so our first step is to nominate somebody tonight to be on that ballot.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll go from there and see how it works.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
So essentially, just to understand a little bit, we nominate our board member, whoever it is, and it'll go to, this person will be put on a ballot, and we have this exact same number of votes no matter what. In other words, if we vote for that person, we have 400 and something votes when we come back and do the rest of the process. But that person can't get more votes, or they can?
They can. They can
So
get
then-
votes from any other entity.
Okay, so that person can politic to be able, or campaign?
That's one way of putting it, yes.
Campaign?
They
Okay.
have to campaign?
They have to campaign.
Entities can also
Campaign.
politic to get with
Okay.
other entities to
Okay,
get a nominee voted in.
okay. Thank you.
Very
Something
interesting.
that shouldn't be political, they've made very political.
Yes, yes, of course, if it came from the state, yes.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, so you said El Paso, the city has 1,000 or so votes?
1,900, over 1,900, yes.
And the Ysleta district, we have 450?
453, I believe.
So the El Paso, the city, they can nominate 4 or 5 people?
They can nominate as many as they choose. Any of
Okay.
you can. And you see the math, right?
With the 1,900 votes, if they wanted to split it up equally, they could have, for sure, 2 seats. 2 seats, for sure.
It's a shame.
So the school districts will be left out?
Could be. It's up to the city, how they use their votes.
So it's the big guy that makes the decision?
Each entity has to make their own decision.
Wow.
So we're the Ysleta entity, we're going to make our decision. Who makes the decision for the 1,900 votes that the El Paso city? Well, you say the city.
The city,
Is it?
council, city council will vote on it.
Oh, okay.
City council will do the same thing we're doing,
Yes.
except they got more clout
Yes. How many
because of the
votes?
votes.
Yes, how many votes does EPISD and Socorro ISD have?
EPISD's got a bunch.
EPISD?
They have enough to get their own seat. Socorro doesn't.
EPISD has 965. And who was the other one? Socorro? Socorro has 837.
So I think collectively, the school district should pull together and have one strong nominee for or candidate for that. That would be my reasoning on that.
Yeah.
Mr.
If you
President,
want to have any voting power, yes.
I think this question is probably best for in-house counsel. Is there any rules that we should be aware of as we do our politicking, as it's now been called? It looks like we do need additional votes from other entities. Would we be in any violation, or what should we know about our politicking?
That's a good question, Mr. Hernandez. Good evening, everyone. So because this is a new law, and I've been in communication with Mr. Medina, who's been super helpful in trying to illuminate us all, it did become clear to me that I think speaking to other voting taxing entities might get us representation on the CAD board, or increase our chances of having our desired representative on that board. So I will, I'll make sure to touch base again with the Secretary of State's election division. So far as I know, you're not campaigning for or against a bond per se or any of that sort of prohibited activity. So I don't think that you run into any liability unless, and this could happen, you start discussing among yourselves, hey, 2, 3 of you, and then ultimately I have a majority of you all talking on the subject of CAD representation, who you want others to elect to the CAD board. So my concern is some sort of discussion leading to possible violation of the Open Meetings Act, so I do want you all to be careful. What I would generally advise is probably not necessarily to speak among yourselves about who it is you want to pitch to the other taxing entities. But I think you'll know, once you take action tonight, who your desired candidate is based on your majority vote. So just...
My question would be that, let's say here is the board, and we choose our nominee. Would it be a violation if I reached out to the other school district and say, hey, we need to, the other, maybe the board president, whatever, and collectively decide among those nominees, we should pull ourselves together so we can have a stronger presence at these CAD meetings, because if you spread us out, we're never going to have representation for the school districts as it is presented tonight. But if we do it collectively between, EPISD, Socorro, and the other ones, would it be a violation if I would reach out to the other president of the boards and say, hey, who's your, collectively, and then us, let's say there's 4 or 5 of us, and we have all our nominees, and then we kind of decide, wait, we're going to put all our votes for this one person.
So in this hypothetical, President Ochoa, you're not necessarily speaking to your colleagues on the board. I wouldn't have an issue with that, but I'll let Tony jump in.
My only thought would be that the prohibition against, under the Open Meetings Act, the trustees talking among each other, of course, does not apply during a board meeting if it's a properly posted item. And it seems to me that if the board president is going to be authorized to speak to other district trustees to try to formulate a common approach to ensure that the school districts have a voice on that board, that it would be best for that authorization to be in a board meeting pursuant to a properly posted item.
An agenda item?
Sorry?
An agenda item?
As an agenda item, yes, sir.
Okay. I can go with that.
And that way, the board president would have the authority of the board
To represent
to
him.
make that sort of contact toward that very legitimate end of ensuring school district representation on that board.
Now, how do I communicate that to the other school districts?
Well, I think that that would be probably best on a board president to board president basis. With the assistance, I would suggest, of the superintendent, who could also communicate with his fellow superintendents.
Yeah, because I think the way it's set up, there's no way we can have one of our, we all vote like entities, different entities, especially school districts. We're never going to have a chance, especially somebody like the city. They can probably split theirs and still get 2 strong CAD members on there. I think we need at least one from the school districts to be represented at that board.
And if I understand correctly, we would be made aware of any of the neighboring districts passing a resolution selecting a representative. So tonight we're going to make our decision. Everyone will become aware of who we've decided to endorse, for lack of a better word. There's nothing to preclude me from joining that individual and attending other board meetings, introducing him or having him introduce himself or her, and asking for their support, especially if they've not endorsed anyone themselves, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we should all know because we're working off the same timeline, right? They're held by the same timeline, so we'll know by a certain date. I'm not sure what that date was that anyone's endorsement had to be submitted.
I believe before October 15, is that correct, Mr.
Yeah.
Medina?
They have to be to our office before October 15th.
So on October 15th, we'll know whether or not, for example, Socorro ISD has endorsed someone or EPISD has endorsed someone. If they've not endorsed anyone, then we could, again, hypothetically, attend one of their meetings and explain why we think it's very important to have somebody on that board representing the interest of the traditional public school system.
But I think EPSD and the city have already endorsed.
Yes, they've already nominated their
Who did?
City of El Paso.
And EPISD, I believe.
And
Yes.
Yes.
EPISD as well.
EPISD has,
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
so we won't visit them.
they still have time. They can nominate someone
Yeah,
else.
I think it's of interest of all the school districts to collectively come up with a plan like we proposed tonight, that we can't do it individually because we're in a no-win situation. But if we collectively band together, at least we can have one. Really, at this point, it just has to be somebody from the public school systems on that CAT board. So
Let me make a note here that the appointee doesn't have to be on the Board of Trustees. Could be any citizen except an employee of the school district.
well, thank you for making it even more confusing. But, okay, I think we got a clear picture of this, and we'll proceed on that, on what you just presented tonight. It's not something we wanted to hear, but something we can work with, that we don't have too much time to do because we're already in September, so we need to work on this fairly
Well,
rapidly.
after the first year, you'll have an opportunity next fall as well.
Yeah, but we want this one now. Okay, any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
all right. We're on agenda item number 4, approval of YSD contract number 202-40219 with El Paso County Community College District. All right. The order of the agenda has been approved. May I have an electronic motion? On the consent items.
Mr. President,
Ms. Woodruff.
I move to approve the consent agenda items listed on this agenda as recommended by the administration.
We have a second by Mr. Chris Hernandez. Please cast your electronic votes. Votes have been cast. The results are 7 in favor, none opposed. We'll start with the action items as listed. Number 1 is approve the setting tax rate for fiscal year 2024-25. Is there any discussion? If no further discussion, may I have an electronic motion? Mr. Bustillos.
Mr. President, I move to approve that the 2024-25 property tax rate increased by the adoption of a tax rate as set forth in the attached order and including separate components of maintenance and operation of 0.7765 and debt services of 0.4505 for a total of $1.2315 per 100 evaluation, which is effectively a 2.80% increase in the tax rate.
Thank you. We have a second by Mr. Haggerty. Please cast your electronic votes. All votes have been cast. We have 6 in favor and 1 opposed. Item number 2, approve a board resolution to designate YSD agent in all property tax matters. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. May I have a motion? Mr. Dwyer.
I move to approve a board resolution designating the El Paso Central Appraisal District as the official agent for YISD in all property tax matters related to protesting the comptroller's preliminary value findings for tax year 2024.
Thank you. We have a second by Mr. Bustillos. Please cast your electronic vote. All votes have been cast. The results are 7 in favor, none opposed. Action item number 3, nomination for the El Paso Central Appraisal CAD Board of Directors for the 2025-2027 3-year term. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, may I have a motion? Ms. Lucero.
I move to nominate Trustee Shane Haggerty for the CAD Board Member of Directors, election for a 3-year term starting January 1st, 2025, ending December 31st, 2027, and approve the related resolution as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Lucero. Please cast your electronic votes. Votes have been cast. Results are 7 in favor, none opposed. Congratulations, Mr. Haggerty.
Thank you. If I could, thank you all for your support. And then just let you know, I really enjoyed my time on the board there. I'm currently board secretary, and I've been learning from day one with everybody over there. Everybody's been fantastic, and it would really be an honor if I am able to go ahead and move forward and represent the school district's best interests and look out for everyone that we represent. So thank you.
Well, Mr. Shane Haggerty will be politicking very hard for you to get you
Oh,
on
yeah.
that board.
And we appreciate that on behalf of the school districts. He's the right
Thank you,
man
Mr.
for
Haggerty.
that. All right. So, no, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 4, approval of YSD debt contract number 202-40219 with the El Paso County Community College District. Is there any discussion? No discussion. May I have a motion? Okay, there it is.
But I think the other one didn't show.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, Mr. President. I move to approve YISD contract number 202-40219, interlocal agreement with El Paso County Community College District for the 2024 to 2027 dual credit partnership agreement and contingent upon final negotiations and in-house counsel review.
Thank you. We have a second by Mr. Haggerty. Please cast your electronic votes. All votes have been cast. The results are 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Well, at this time, I think it concludes our board meeting, and may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
They beat you to it, Connie. They beat you.